Good morning, Grinders. Welcome to the DFS pregame show here on RotoGrinders. I'm Jordan Cooper, aka Blender at Blender HD. If you want to follow me on Twitter, and it's Friday, July 8th. And you know what we do on Fridays? It's Fighting Fridays. We're fighting each other on Fridays. Maybe not me and you. I have no problem with the people in the YouTube chat. I see you guys. Suki Singh, what has got here a little bit early. Andrew Garcia, good morning, card fan. Hit that thumbs up button. You know how much that helps out. Give me those thumbs. First thing in the door, hit the subscribe button if you're new here. Hit the notification bell to know when we go live. We'll be covering baseball later today. There's a 14-game MLB slate. Dean and the guys. I don't know. Dean may be out, actually. I think maybe there'll be people. There'll be people there. I don't know. I don't know who's on the show. But Grinders Live will be later today. Crunch Time, which is free all season, brought to you by FanDuel. There's also a special FanDuel strategy video. And we got plenty of stuff behind the paywall for RotoGrinders premium members, which you could sign up by clicking on the link in the description and get $10 off. We recorded it almost just under a 2-hour premium podcast for the UFC card tomorrow with Liam breaking down all the fights, Mike there as well. So check that out. We'll have the expert survey out as well. Projections, the ownership, the tools, right? You obviously get to use Lineup HQ. So click there. Get a combo premium package. Get all the sports. You don't have to worry about anything and play. And then we got summer league basketball content also. So and projection. We got summer league NBA projections. So if you want that, you got to come behind the premium section. I also have a Discord channel, Blender's Game Theory. You could ask questions, post there anytime you want when it comes to DFS strategy. I run coaching calls there 3 or 4 times a month. So just, hey, value add. It doesn't cost any extra. Joshua Frick, good morning. Good morning. Tomorrow's UFC card. I mentioned this on the premium podcast. A lot of times on many cards, people overplay the 9K fighters a little too much. Because on a 12-fight card, the lower that you go in salary, the less likely you're going to be duplicated. Right? The duplication factor goes down because most people like filling out like all of their salary. So a 50K lineup is much harder to be unique or less duplicated than a 49-8 lineup or 49-6 lineup, 49-4 lineup, like those types of lineups. Can you find unique lineups that are 50K? Yeah, there aren't many. Can you find unique lineups that are 49-9? Yeah, but there aren't as many. But as you go down, even though the ownership may seem like you're still playing fairly chalky fighters, but you're leaving 800 on the table. Like that ownership sum looks high, but in fact, it's not going to be as duplicated as you think it's going to be. So on many cards, people overplay the 9K fighters, and because the mid-range fighters have enough upside to beat out the 9K fighters. So a lot of times you're leaving 500 on the table, and instead of playing a 9K fighter, you're playing an $8,700 person instead and leaving money on the table. And that person has to outscore all the 9K fighters. So a lot of times mid-range builds are not as common on most slates. On this slate, however, I think the mid-range is actually going to be the most hammered section. So like the combinations of those mid-range fighters and like one 9K fighter, I think is going to be the most popular combination. Something like we have Mma, right? I think the popular combinations would be something like Mma plus either Bahayo or Tercios or Vander. I mean, chalk Jared Vander just sounds awful, but I mean, he's plus 125 inside the distance at 8,600. So maybe it's something, I mean, you could obviously fit in Fiziev, Vandera, Ronnie Lawrence, right? So this combination is most likely not going to have Fiziev because it's going to have Dos Anjos in it, the main event underdog. So you're going to see some type of combination like this with like Tercios, 7,700, and maybe Nina Noon. Okay, maybe not. Let's see. Tercios for like Baralio, 7,600. Yeah, something like this. some type of combination. Like if you don't play Fiziev, you're probably playing Dos Anjos at 7,200. So like if you're playing two 8K fighters, like even if you take a Vandera, like you could probably play Mma or Lawrence. You're playing Dos Anjos. You still have 8367. So yeah, so you could end up playing something, if you let's see. If you're not playing, you're playing Chase Sherman there. If you're not playing Vandera, yeah, and you could still fit in, something like Baralho or Trayshawn Gore or Brundage. I just don't think like guys in this range, other than Dos Anjos, are going to be that owned. I don't think Courtney Casey's, well, maybe Courtney Casey only because not many people are going to play Antonina Shevchenko, but I don't think Zahabi's going to be that owned, or Petrosian's going to be that owned, or Johnson's going to be that owned, or Silva de Andrade's going to be that owned, or Armfield definitely. I think people are going to try to jam in as much in the middle as possible, which means that Fiziev's ownership is going to go down. I still think he's going to be over 30% owned, and I still don't want as much of him. But the first thing that you do in MMA, especially if you're playing large field GPPs, and even if you're not, is figuring out what the popular combinations are going to be, because you're trying to avoid the combinations. So if you're going to play Mma and Fiziev together, average remaining salary 79.25. If you're going to play that with, let's say, Jared Vandera and Ronnie Lawrence, like how many combinations could of the last two fighters? You only have 73.50, and you're not going to stack a fight, right? So you take a look at this and you go, okay, let's go to our little combo calculator here, right? I still have yes to last. I mean, who knows what the field size is? Like I should update it for that because it's not 37,000. It's a little bit lower than that, right? Let's make sure. Let's go to my phone. Just update this. 32,679. Okay, so 32,670. Just a little bit lower. Okay, so I'm gonna get rid of these. And what is our ownership for this? I don't necessarily agree completely with our ownership. 49, 39, 38. 49, 39, 30, 39, 38, I think 31. Right? Is that what we got here? Yeah, something like that. Right? And then we're going to just run it. Okay, we have all of this in place. We're going to put it up to 300. How many combinations could there possibly be for the last two fighters when the average remaining player salary is 73.59? Right? You run until it breaks, right? 9. So the average dupes is 81 times. I mean, if you played those four fighters together, you're just going to run into too many dupes. Even if you don't agree with this own, even if you take down the ownership, even if you say, well, maybe Fiziev's 32% owned and Vandera is only 32% owned, and Lawrence maybe comes in at 30, maybe 29. I mean, you're still going to run in. I mean, let's say we even do that. We'd like, okay, let's put him at 32 and put him at 30 and put him at 27. I mean, you're still looking at 46 average dupes, the remaining two slots. Right? Because you can't even build. You can't even leave that much money on the table also. These are all like 49.4. You got that line. But most likely this combination is going to be duped too much. Mma, Fiziev, Vandera, Lawrence. You're trying to find out which combinations are going to be the most used and not use them. So this would be the candidate for a group of no more than 3. I mean, personally, I would say no more than 2. But it's like you experiment. You use lineup HQ. You could do this in Excel also if you want to, kind of use the solver functionality in Excel. But if you don't, I hack through it, just lineup HQ. Put the combination in, run 300 lineups and see where it stops. But how about the Dos Anjos combinations? So let's say we take away Fiziev. Dos Anjos is going to be the most popular underdog. Probably Mma plus Dos Anjos. Plus, this is going to be a popular combination also. Same exact thing, but with 28%. So we're going to do 28. That was 38 and 31. Okay, a little bit less. So, I mean, there's more combinations, though. If you have 49, 28, 38, 31, that's 1.62% of lineups on average. So how many lineups of the last two spots here? Now we have a lot more space. 8250 average. Like, how many combinations is that actually? 69. We put that in as 69. Average dupes is 7. Okay, not as bad. But it depends on which. Remember, this is average dupes. Some of these lineups with the last two may be duped 25 times. Some may be unique or duped twice. And that's probably going to be based on salary. So, for instance, if we just go by salary, high to low, like most likely this lineup would be duped with Tercios and Nunez in it. Roberson, Calvillo, 50,000. Right? These are the ones where we say average duplication 7. These are the ones that may be duped 15 times, 20 times. Then we go by the lower salary. And even though it's that combination, like this may be a unique lineup, 47-6. Because you're just plugging in the two biggest underdogs that aren't the opposites of the other fights. Right? So the ownership could be high. I mean, we take a look and we go just projected ownership, high to low. Right? 207, 50,000. Like this is heavily duplicated. Heavily duplicated. 49.9, heavily duplicated. Okay, here's 49.2 at 202. So even though the ownership sum is high, this lineup may not be as duplicated. I don't think this is a unique. This may not be a unique lineup, but this may be an under 5. So if you're just going bluntly based on ownership sum, you may be missing out on some of these lineups. So some people just go and go, okay, I look at this, they end up seeing some 50K lineup, right? Like 198.7, and go, Saeed Nurmagomedov and a Petrosian. This is two duplicated. So I'm just going to cut off at 198. So it doesn't build any lineup that has an ownership sum higher than it. Well, we found two lineups up here that may actually be under 5, or maybe even unique. Maybe, probably not. Maybe 2 or 3. But because it only spends 49.2 or 49.1, it's more likely not to be used by other people as much. So that's the byproduct of strictly using ownership sum to build your lineups. You can't. I mean, if you want to do it bluntly, if you don't want to go through the nuances of each lineup like this, and you just go, I'm just going to set. I'm going to go to whatever I think is the lowest, and go, I'm going to cut it off at 155, and I just want to build lineups on. You could do that. You're going to be missing a lot of lineups, but you're also going to be getting a lot of unique lineups. You're also going to need to probably play a lot of under-owned fighters and not be comfortable with your lineups. You're going to have a lot of Michael Johnson and Chase Sherman in your lineups, and you're going to be kind of icky going into tomorrow's slate. Going through the YouTube chat, Ian Braden, good morning. If you got any questions, you could always post them in the YouTube chat, especially about the MMA card, the UFC stuff coming up tomorrow. Small field, large field, I played them both on Draftkings. I don't know what the hell's going on FanDuel. Don't even ask me about UFC stuff on FanDuel. No idea. I mean, I know it exists. I just don't play it. MJC said, would you suggest large fields even if I were not to max enter, or sticking to the single and 3 max is the way to go? Are 15K plus fields a waste with only a few entries? No, that's what I used to do. I would suggest you play the contests that you do the best in building lineups for. Okay? Do you build good large field lineups? And it doesn't matter that you don't play 150 of them. Play 3 of them. Play 5 of them. Play 10 of them. Play 1 of them. Is it a plus EV lineup? That's the only thing that matters. Is it a plus EV lineup? Yes, play it. Single entry and 3 max contests, smaller field contests, different types of contests. The lineups that you would build for a single and 3 max are going to be different than you build from a large field contest. Are you better at building those types of lineups? If you are, then play those. It's as simple as that. There's no correct answer to this question. How good are you? Imagine asking a basketball player, would you suggest taking 3-pointers rather than layups? And you go, well, are you good at 3-pointers? They go, no, I'm horrible at 3-pointers, but I'm very good at layups. I said, so drive the lane and lay the ball up. Should I work on my 3-point game? It's like, how many points are you the best at layups and driving the lane and slamming the ball, getting drawing fouls? Yeah. So who cares about the 3-pointers? Then you talk to Steph Curry and it'll be like, okay, take the 3-pointers, right? So there's no correct answer. What are you good at? I'm good. I'm good across the board, but my strong suit is for large field contests. So that's what I primarily played. Doesn't mean I can't play single entry and 3-max contests. I mean, I'm doing that a little bit now in baseball, a little. I do that in soccer. But for the most part, I'm good at identifying leverage, weeding out duplicates, this type of stuff, combinatorics, and give myself the best chance of winning first place, knowing that you're going to lose 90+% of the time. You're playing to win once a year, twice a year. That's it. Can I win first place once or twice a year? If I could do that, I profit. I'm wildly profitable. And especially so since I'm not playing 150 lineups. I rarely play 150 lineups into anything. Basketball season comes around. I used to hand build 10 lineups. Hand build 6 lineups, 12 lineups, whatever. Usually it's an even number. Just just sounds better. Who builds 11 lineups or 17 lineups? Sounds weird. But as long as you're building lineups that are plus EV for the contest that it's in, what does it matter? Build 3 lineups. Just understand that winning first place is not. You're aiming to do that and win once a year. That's it. Build lineups that could win once a year. And then you win the 50,000 or 100,000 once a year. And obviously you're wildly profitable because you're only playing 3-5 entries or something. You're not playing 150. You're not putting in $2,000, $2,500 a slate to do so. You're playing 150 entries. You have to pretty much win first, like once a month. Like on average. Maybe it depends on the payout structure. But if you're playing 150 entries into every contest first, like you're gonna have to win on, like, you would have to win like 5 or 6 times a year just to break even. Just to break even. For me, it's like if I win once, I have a small profit. If I win twice, I'm very profitable because I don't play 150 entries. You don't have to. Ryan Moth says, I've been using projected ownership cap and will try more manual trimming this week. I ended up with 50% uniques last week, but concerned I'm sacrificing win equity. Yeah, I mean, that's the balance. I could just lock in all the 6 biggest underdogs into this lineup and get a unique lineup. I could leave 6,000 on the table and get a unique lineup, but what is that chance? What are the chances of that being a winning lineup? Very, very low. But of course, you could lock in like, the best money line value, the line value type of lineup, and it's like, okay, that's duplicated 274 times. Like you have to find the middle in between that. I think the most important thing to start out is figure out what combos other people are more likely to be using and avoid those combos. And if the optimal lineup is a lineup that's tied 74 ways for first, then you just lose on this. Like, you just lose. That's it. No one's profitable long term on slates like that. So let the people yay about their $2,700 whatever 74-way tie. Like, I'm not going to build those lineups. But I think on this slate, people are going to avoid constructions that have one of these 2 guys, Malarkey or Nurmagomedov, because of Onama. Like, Onama originally, he was on the card against Lingo, and then Lingo dropped out, and then he wasn't going to fight anyone. This was going to be an 11-fight card. And then he got put back on against a late notice replacement that's fighting up a weight class. So I think Onama is going to be the highest owned fighter on the entire slate. And then you have the main event favorite at 9K at Fizz Eve over here. So it's like the 2 guys in between, they're not going to be low owned. Like, we're not talking about 10% owned. But the combinations that involve these 2 guys or one of those two guys at least are going to be much, much less duplicated. So figure this type of lineup, instead of Onama and Fazeev, you're replacing one with Nurmagomedov and Malarkey. And by simply doing that, you're like upping you're removing your duplication chances by like 4x. Even though the ownership on these guys are like the high 20s, probably Malarkey, these it's not going to be this high. I think Nurmagomedov's going to come in at like 26. Malarkey's going to come in at like 24. But there are going to be less combinations of those because Onama, Fazeev are going to be more. There are going to be more lineups that have both of them together. Now, obviously, if you play neither and you just say I'm going to play Nurmagomedov and Malarkey, and don't play Onama or Fazeev, now you're going to run into many less combinations. Now you could play Ronnie Lawrence and Jared Vandera and Rafael Dos Anjos in that type of line. Right? You're down with 7,500. I mean, you're playing the main event underdog. You're playing two 9K fighters, neither of them being Onama. Like, even this may actually be a duplicated line. I mean, this probably is over 5. Because the ownership is just really high on this. But like this style of lineup, if you take a Vandera and you put in Cynthia Calvillo, right, and then he's 7,600 left, you leave money on the table and you play Petrosian. You leave 200, 300 on the table. Like, this lineup could be under 5. You're leaving 300 on the table. That means, like, Nurmagomedov and Malarkey both have to beat Onama because there's space for Onama to be in there. Right, so this lineup, Petrosian gets a knockout. Lawrence gets a big, 8 takedown decision win. But these combinations aren't going to be as used. And then once you start taking out Lawrence, you take out Lawrence and you put in Brundage, and you leave an 800 on the table, this could be a unique lineup. Because you're not playing Onama, you're not playing Fazeev, you're not playing Jared Vandera, you're not playing Ronnie Lawrence. Like, you're just avoiding those combinations completely. So when you're playing MMA in large, especially large field, this is you should be looking at this first, not who's going to win the fight. Who am I playing? Who am I not playing? Who's overowned? Who's underowned? What combinations are going to be the most used? What combinations are going to be the least used? And then, depending on the field size of the contest that you're playing, then you adjust based on that. So, like, I just showed you a 49-2 lineup. That's a large field lineup. But let's say you don't have to. If you don't want to play, you don't want to play that nutso, right? You played Onama and Dos Anjos, who are going to be a popular combination. You take one of these guys. You take Malarkey, right, to get off of a common build. You still take Calvillo over Vandera or Ronnie Lawrence. You take Ronnie Lawrence's opponent for leverage in Kakramanov. You still have 8,100 left. And Trayshawn Gore may be a little bit popular, so you take Brundage there. And you're leaving 200 on the table, and you have a lineup like this. Like, this would be like a lineup for a small. This would be, if you wanted to play the 555 or the 200 3 max. Like, I could see playing a lineup like this, where you're still playing, closely around, right? Because we're kind of jamming. Other than Dos Anjos, we're jamming that mid-range. Remember what I said before? That's going to be the popular construction, jamming the mid-range. But it's jamming the mid-range, but playing the opposite of Lawrence, not playing Jared Vandera, right? Instead of Brundage, I could play Sherman in this lineup and get even more leverage. Leave 500 on the table and get leverage over the Lawrence people as well as the Vandera people. Right? You could do this. Like, this would be how you think in small field. Because if you put this combination into large field, even leaving 500 on the table, maybe this is not unique. This may be under 5. This lineup may be under 5. But you don't have to worry necessarily about uniqueness as much in the small field stuff. But you still want to get off popular combos. Onama plus Dos Anjos, very popular combo. But then once you start adding some of these other people in, not so much. But if you're going to go into small field contests and go like, well, I'm going to play Onama, and I'm going to play Fazeev, and I'm going to play Lawrence, and then I'm going to play Brundage, right? And then I'm going to play 7,700. I'm going to play Petrosian, and then something, whatever, Kennedy and Juku. Like you're already gotten, once you get to Onama, Fiziev, Lawrence, you've there are going to be a lot of lineups that look like that. They may be 30 lineups in the contest that have all three fighters together out of 200. It's a popular combination. You don't want to compete against 30 other lineups. You want to compete against as little lineups as you can. So not playing the popular combination. You can still play popular fighters, just not in the same combinations that other people will play. Especially for the small, for smaller field. You don't have to go nuts. I always say, you don't have to go nuts in small field contests. But it's still better to be a 3v3, 4v4 off of a chalky combination than just being a 1v1 or a 2v2. It goes along with that type of concept. Ryan Moth asked, do you think Lawrence is going to be higher than 31%, given his fight style and previous box scores? He could be. I think it'll be somewhere between 30 and 35%. Because he's just an aggressive wrestler. But he's not that favored in this fight. Right? And his face, Kakramanov, is not a slouch in the grappling department either. But yeah, I think Lawrence 30 to 35. Maybe not to 40%. I don't think Tresean Gore is going to be 33% down. There's stuff in our ownership that I would adjust for human bias purposes. Like Tresean Gore, I would see in the mid-20s. Lawrence in the mid-30s. I don't think Vanderia is even going to be this owned. He'll be in the low 30s. I don't think Shevchenko is going to be 25. She'll be 18 to 20. Tercios may be higher due to box score watchers. He may come in at 32. Baralho may come in at, I don't know, somewhere around, like Fiziev. I don't think Fiziev's going to be 39% down. I think he's going to be lower. But I don't think he's going to be 10% down. He's going to be 30, but not 39. And I think Malarkey and Nurmagomedov are going to come down in ownership. They're going to both be in the low 20s rather than in the high 20s or low 30s. So I make these little adjustments. I think Sherman's going to be a little bit higher. I think Casey looks fine. I think Zahabi and Petrosian will be a little lower. I think Dos Anjos will be much higher than 28. I think Dos Anjos will be 38. He's the most appealing underdog on the slate. 7,200, who wrestles. He's a name. And you really can't trust anyone else in this range. I may be playing a lot of Michael Johnson and Petrosian and some of these guys in large field. But I don't think people want to click on the biggest underdog and guys that you can't trust at all. Okay, I'll take the main event underdog. So I expect him to be much higher owned than 28%. But feel free to take a shot. I'm going to be building a lot of lineups that play one of these guys underneath here. Not Dos Anjos. That plays Zahabi or Petrosian or Johnson or Silva de Andrade. All these guys, it's a longer shot, have knockout stuff. Have said that they can knock out their opponent. And if Tercios is going to be over 30% owned, if Baralho is going to be around there, and Malarkey and Nurmagomedov, in lineups that I'm not playing one of them, Michael Johnson can land. Malarkey's been knocked out. He was knocked out 4 months ago. Michael Johnson is old and not that good anymore, but he does have knockout power. Douglas Silva de Andrade, I think Said Nurmagomedov wins this fight, but would I be shocked if, one well-placed shot knocks him out in the first round? Or they struggle on the ground and scramble and de Andrade puts in RNC or something? That could happen. And there's a couple of these guys like that, like a Zahabi, Petrosian, Johnson, and Silva de Andrade. Can one of them pull up the upset in the first round? Well, you'll be way over the field, and then you could just now play Onama plus one of these 9K guys, get the right combination of mid-range guys, and I think you'll be unique. So I'm going to be playing a lot of those type of combinations. But I don't know. But I'm not favoring any one of these fighters. Like, it's not like, well, I'm going to play a lot more of Michael Johnson than anyone. No, just that I'm going to be playing the constructions that need a 7,400, 7,300, 7,100, 7,000 type of fighter that may not have a main event fighter in it. Like, maybe it doesn't have Dos Anjos or Fiziev in the lineup. And then just playing Onama plus one of those guys plus Malarkey. If I'm playing Silva de Andrade, then I'm playing Onama, Malarkey, right? And then you're playing the Silva de Andrade. And if you're playing Nurmagomedov in the lineup, then you're playing Michael Johnson. If you're not playing Baraglio, you're playing Petrosian. If you're not playing Tercios, you're playing Zahavi. Like, making those types of combinations. As many of those as I can. Because I'm going to be way under on Fiziev. It's hard for me to see him getting 100 plus points outside of the first round. Maybe not even the first 2 rounds. And even if he does, there are plenty of people here that could outscore. Let's say Fiziev, first round knockout, not a quick win bonus, is 108 points. Well, there are plenty of people that could score over 108, right? He's not going to wrestle. So, like, I'm not that concerned about third round finish with a bunch of control time. Like, it's a lot unlikely to happen. Like, once it gets past the second round, Fiziev's dead. I don't see him scoring well in a decision. Just not a high volume striker. Good striker. And he also maybe defending takedowns a ton, which will just suck the fantasy points out of you. That means you're not doing anything. You're getting held and clinched against the cage. But of course, I say that just like with any other main event favorite, it goes out, goes 4 rounds, puts up like 7 million significant strikes, and ends up with 142 points for no reason. Right, Ryan in chat says, I'm going to be over on MJ also. It'll be painful. Yes, I know. I said that on the podcast. If you listen to the premium podcast, sign up for RotoGrinders Premium. 2 hours of fight breakdowns and strategy stuff. I said, I'm going to have some lineups I'm going to have a bunch of lineups that have Chase Sherman and Michael Johnson in. It doesn't make me feel good. Joshua Frick says, with RDA pace he fights at, do you think there's one of the weeks we can have a losing fighter in the winning lineup? Yeah. And if there's going to be a losing fighter in the winning lineup, which means like pretty much all the favorites win, the most likely losing fighter that scores the most is Rafael Dos Anjos. So he has more usefulness there also. But remember, the only way that a losing fighter could be in the lineup, well, most likely. I mean, of course, there are losing fighters that put up 7 million points for no apparent reason. But the most likely scenario is because everyone 7,900 or above, or even 7,800 or above, won. But once you get someone under 7,800 to win, it's very hard for a losing fighter to be in the optimal lineup. But if we only get if Roberson and Brundage are in Kakramanov for dogs that win, a losing fighter may still be in the lineup because you just can't fit them all in. But you don't play for that scenario. If it happens, it happens. But on a card with only 1 5-rounder, when that does happen, it's the main event underdog has a significantly higher chance of being that highest scoring losing fighter. That it's you're getting more usefulness out of it. There's nothing to do with his style, even. It has to do with the fact that it will go 5 rounds, and a decision loss in 5 rounds much 2 extra rounds of scoring than a 3-round fight that ends in a decision loss. Yet we do see some of those fights. We do see, someone that dominates on the ground for 1 round and scores 35 points. And then the second round gets some domination, but then gets dropped. Right? And then loses the third round, whatever. He gets reversed or whatever. And the losing fighter has 68 points in a 3-rounder. The winning fighter may not even outscore that. right? The winning fighter has 64 and the losing fighter has 68. Because the other guy only had 34 points plus the decision win is 30, right? You see that on occasion. That's typically an aggressive wrestler that manages to lose 2 rounds, even while being dominant in some capacity. That happens. It happens on occasion. Okie doke. I think that's that we covered kind of the bare basic stuff for tomorrow's UFC card. 12 fights. Draftkings at 6 p.m. Eastern. Okay, we're getting it's a mid. I don't want the late ones. Like the pay-per-views I could deal with, right? Because they're pay-per-views. I get it. I like when they're early. I like the 1 o'clock Eastern cards. I love those. We got 6 o'clock Eastern. If you're sign up for RotoGrinders Combo Premium, you'll get all the MMA content. Our expert survey should be coming out later today. I still have to fill it. I still have to write. I still fill my part out. We have the premium podcast, which should be coming out. Should be out. I don't know. Probably in the RG app. Audio, video. You really don't even need the video, but the audio should be out. And then we'll be updating the projected ownership. Moneyball 16 does that. Once or twice a day, and the projections. And if you want to ask any further questions, you could always join me in the premium Discord in the Blenders Game Theory channel or the MMA channel. We have the MMA channel. If you want to ask MMA questions, go in the MMA channel. There'll be people there, right? You could ask me. You could ask Moneyball or Mike Brown, H3 Buddha in the MMA channel. So sign up for RotoGrinders Premium. Click on that link in the description. Get $10 off your first month. Hit that thumbs up button on your way out the door. Give me those thummy thumbs, Don't punch me in the face, but give me those thummy thumbs. Hit the subscribe button. If you are new here, hit the notification bell to always know when we go live on this channel later today. 14-game MLB slate. They'll be covering it all at 5 o'clock Eastern. 6:20 Eastern is crunch time. You'll get all the weather updates. I don't know if there is weather today. There obviously is weather. I don't know if there's bad weather today. We'll find that out later on. They'll lead you up until lock, presented by FanDuel for all the big MLB slate, which I'll be playing tonight. And then we got UFC tomorrow, and then I'll be back on Monday. Right, Monday we'll just keep on going, answering your DFS strategy questions like I normally do on the DFS pregame show on RotoGrinders.com.